All right. Morning. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Morning.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right.
Morning, sir.
Morning. Thank you. All right. So we continue our discussion with lecture series number 13, and hopefully we get to finish it off today, I think. If not, then probably it's going to be Monday or something. I'm not sure if people have questions linked to what we looked at when we met, is it day before yesterday? Okay, if there are no questions, then we proceed. For those of you that haven't checked your emails yet, you'll have noticed that we did mention that the assessment, so quiz number 10, has been moved to Tuesday because of maintenance works that CICT is undertaking on the ICT infrastructure at UNZA. So we've had to move it to Tuesday. All right, so day before yesterday, we set the stage for this whole notion of data backups, right? And we set the stage by just putting out there some real world scenarios, right? Now, granted, those scenarios are just specific to my own personal experiences. There's countless examples of things that have gone wrong in the past, right? Instances where backing up of data becomes extremely important. Now, one thing you have to realize is that when you're setting up crucial IT infrastructure, especially infrastructure that fundamentally deals with data, is there's usually what's called fault tolerance that's inbuilt within the infrastructure itself. And so you anticipate that bad things could happen. And so you'd want your infrastructure to be fault tolerant. But unfortunately, right, there are instances when things go horribly wrong, and your quote-unquote fault-tolerant ICT infrastructure will still fail, right? So there are extreme situations, like an example I gave about what happened to the COMESA building, for instance. It caught fire, right? Everything was burnt to the ground. I'm not sure how much data they lost. This was, I think, about 9 years ago, if not 10 years ago. So it was at a time when easy-to-use ICT infrastructure like cloud storage was not really mainstream, right? So I'm pretty sure they lost a considerable amount of data. Other extreme cases, what happened, is it during 9/11, right? So if there were server infrastructure in those buildings that were brought down, can't remember when here, but it was a long time ago, it's likely that data was lost, right? So this is the reason why it's important for you to back up data, right? So the idea behind backing up data is you want to be able to rebuild data once lost, right? So in a situation where your computer crashes, for instance, you want to make sure that you have an alternative source of the same data located elsewhere, such that it's a lot easier for you to just rebuild that data or restore that data once you find a replacement machine or computer or something. So the idea really behind backup is you want to make sure that data backups is you want to make sure that they are regular and reliable, right? And obviously, all of this is done in secondary storage. The organizations in this case, or it could be the individual, gets to decide on what sort of data needs to be backed up, for instance. So it turns out that you can view these data backups from so many different perspectives. The first perspective is from the specific type of backup that you're performing, right, in relation to the data itself. So the backup can either be online or offline. So an online backup will involve you backing up data whilst an information system is still operational, right? So if you look at Moodle, for instance, I do believe it's a classic example of, I guess, an information system on which data is backed up using an online strategy. So the backups that take place on the Moodle, right? If we were to go to the Moodle, for instance, just want to show you some. I hope I can see this. Maybe not. Let me see here. Just see the logs, and I know I can check Kajol, I guess. No, okay. I hope I'll be able to check this. So the idea behind an online backup is the backup takes place whilst people are still using the system. Right? There are instances when you would be required to take the system down before you back it up. So that's an offline strategy where the system is not, or the information system is not operational per se. Right? I wanted to show you some usage logs of Moodle, right? To showcase exactly what typically happens. We just say control. Jesus Christ, can't seem to find. It was probably yesterday, I guess. He hasn't done this today yet. Let's see if I can find. Nothing. Okay. I was hoping I could find. I was hoping I could find some log trails from a person that works CICT. So it's an automated backup, but we can see that it's done by a specific user, right? So if I can just get to a stage where, not quite, just skip to page number 9, I guess. I think number 15. All right. Number 18. I'm not sure what Kennedy Porter is doing here. Looks like he's been accessing Moodle for. Looks like his owner has been accessing Moodle here. Oh shit! Sorry, that's my bad. Sorry, I had filtered out Kennedy, so which is why I couldn't think it. Let me just get the logs again. Just showcase this. Hope we'll be able to see Kajoy this time around. Oh, there we go. So, and we can't really see what exactly this person is doing. Okay, but in an ideal case, a user like Kajova typically, let me see here. This is stuff from CICT, and so there's an automated backup that usually takes place. Scratch this. So observe, if I go here, right? I'm on Moodle right now. I'm on the ICT 1110 course site. I can back up this site right now, right? So all I have to do is take advantage of the Moodle backup feature, and then I get to specify exactly what I want to back up. So what I'm trying to say is that the process I'm going through right now, I'm backing up the site, right? It's an online backup strategy because I'm backing up the site once Moodle is still operational. You understand? So I'll perform the backup, and then the backup is going to be done for me. Notice the progress here. And so this is a classic example of an online backup strategy, right? The alternative is where you have to completely take the system down, for instance.
So,
yes?
I didn't see what happened. The network was lagging behind.
Yeah. Well, is this the case for everyone, or is just you? If it's just you, then you have to play
It's just
back.
me. It's just.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
right,
always
right,
play
right.
back, I suppose. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just showcasing an example of an online backup strategy where you're backing up data whilst the system or platform is still operational. Now, it might not necessarily require a backup. Would depend on which aspect of the information system you're backing up. So if you are backing up the database, perhaps you'd have to take the database down and not the entire system, for instance, right? Anyway, all right. And then, so this brings us to this, again, we're back to this whole notion of aspects to take into account as you're trying to carve out or to identify an appropriate backup strategy, right? I think it's important that we bring this, we highlight these things early on. So you'd have to take into account things like cost, capacity, the performance, and the availability, right? So in terms of cost,
I have a question.
here, yes.
That data you've backed up on Moodle, where have you backed it up?
Yeah, so good question. So what typically happens is I didn't finish the process. So what happens is it's backed up on the server itself, the server, the computer system server, the server computer system that's hosting Moodle, right? So that would be this server here with an IP address 4163.127, right? You understand this if you haven't. Once you look at computer networks and the internet with with Edward Mwalimu in 1020, EDU 1020. But the data that's been backed up, the backup itself is on the same server computer system. But what I can do, right, the wise thing to do is once you back it up, because it's pointless for you to back up something and leave it on that same computer system. What you want to do is you back up the data, move it to an alternative storage medium. So what I normally do myself, I don't do this often because we've been assured by ICT that they perform regular backups on Moodle. So it's redundant to it and it's time consuming, so I don't even bother. But what I can do is, if you notice here, there've been other backups that I've conducted. So I can identify which backup I've done. I don't know if you can see this. This is the one I've performed just now. It's Friday, September 18th. I did it at 8:10, right? So what I can do, the wise thing to do once you back this up is you download it, right? When I download it, I'll have a copy of this backup onto my local machine. And in fact, what I would normally do is, once I download it, I'll probably move it to Google Drive, I'll move it to my Dropbox folder, I'll move it to my external storage, just in case I would want to refer to it at a later point in time. Now, year before last, what I used to do is I'll do this every week, right? Just in case data is lost or something. The last thing we would want to do is, like if Moodle was to go down and there's no backup, think everything that is on Moodle right now, all the assignments that you've submitted that haven't yet been graded would be lost, right? Gone forever. The downside with that is if the lecturer is not compiling the scores, it'll be very hard, right? It'll be very hard to restore whatever was done, right? I guess the lecturer would probably get some weird email from the lecturer to say, can you resend assignment number 1 and 2? It'd be sad. For the quizzes, it would be really hard, right? Do you understand this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, great. Right, these are things to think about here. You have to think about the most valuable commodity in all of this. In fact, when it comes to computers, the most important thing is the data or data. This is what you are interested in. Now, granted, it's processed, it's consumed in some way, but ultimately what you're interested in is the data that you're creating, the data that
Has the cell lost connection or something?
No, Mr. Paul, I think he has lost connection, and we don't have the transcript to. Is the transcript here to write the message to us?
I'm sure it's going to notice it very soon.
Yeah, he's going to notice that he's offline. Oh, besides, guys, what were we talking about?
He was when he's explaining and he's in full screen. It will be impossible for him to know that he's offline.
Oh yeah.
No, like, guys, I'm asking, what was he explaining before he blacked out?
I can't even remember zero because I just joined.
Oh, right.
I also lost connection, so
But Mr. Paul, at first, like the first few minutes, what was he? Has he explained any techniques for backing up data, or is still explaining why it's important to back up data?
He went to the Moodle. I only saw for the Moodle thing, but I missed it also.
Yeah, so, Mr. Paul, yes, what did it do?
he was just talking about why it's important to back up data. He hasn't gone into the techniques yet.
Oh, okay.
He might just as well do what he did last time. Talking to himself.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's what I was saying.
Just started talking to himself.
Because when he's presenting, he's in full screen, so you won't be able to see that I'm offline and this thing. That's why we need classmates to contact him.
None of them.
The class capacity is low. Yeah. Oh,
more like a group discussion we have.
Yeah. And then on Saturday, part 26, that's when I'm going back to school.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, man. You'll come back after the other week.
Hey.
Ndwanga, see online. You're risking your shit away. I doubt if this guy is noticing anytime soon. Someone inbox Theoma. What's it? Francis? Something.
Who is having his phone number just to page him or something so it is disturbed?
I'm sure it's the class reps.
Yeah, class reps. Sorry, neither of them is here.
Emmanuel P has the phone number. Emma, to me the boy guy.
In fact, she has the phone number. Isaac, just share the phone number.
I share the phone number.
Yeah,
phone number boy guy.
Yes, sir.
Emmanuel P has it.
You're catching a class, right?
Emma,
okay.
To me sir.
No, Mr. Credence, don't go and pack your bag yet.
Yeah, some of us we need to start packing now.
But I was also planning to test today because I tend to forget a lot of things, so at least I'm packing one by one.
I'm packing on Monday. I'm also packing on Monday.
Guys, we see the assign.
Guys.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
How many are you accommodated? How many are you accommodated? Guys.
I don't know for others.
Boarding house. Campus. I'm on campus,
That's
guys.
quite dope, guys. If you have to, nice, right?
Scotty, haven't they decide, and then, haven't they whatever, haven't they made the choice on when you guys should, and how they want to do the accommodation
I
thing?
think they are yet to do that.
TV says
hello?
it is working on Hangouts.
How long have I been? How long have I been?
Hey, sir.
Like 10 minutes. Yeah. 10
Like
minutes.
4 or 5 minutes.
No, 5 minutes.
10 minutes.
5 minutes.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate. I didn't notice. What were we talking about before we went offline?
The importance of
It's unfortunate that I was talking to myself for that long. I wonder what the class reps are here for. If they can't. Oh my God! Just give me a minute.
Actually, none of them is here.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Just give me a second. Yeah, I'm wondering. I can't remember. I was talking to myself for that long. That's weird, right? Did I start talking about these different aspects to take into account? The factors that you take into account as you're coming up with a backup strategy?
Yes, you did.
Okay, great.
That's why you ended.
Okay, great. Oh, if this is where I ended, then that's good, right? So, I mean, just to reiterate here, I was talking about, I must have been talking to myself for 5 minutes when I was giving examples of some specific scenarios on scenarios that would require you to take into account these aspects, right? So if in terms of cost, bear with me if I'm repeating myself, but I just have to say this. So in terms of cost, I mean, examples would be you taking into account things like the amount of money you're going to have to invest to set up some storage area network, for instance. If you need to do that, you do a comparison between that and perhaps investing money in backing up your data to tape. But backing up to tape doesn't just mean that you're going to back up to tape, that's it. You'd have to take into account the amount of money you spend taking the tapes to an off-site storage location that you have, right? Usually tape is almost always the cheaper option. And then there's the issue of capacity, right? Capacity in terms of how much data you're backing up. So important questions to ask here is not just the amount of data that you back up on a daily basis now, but you should be able to figure out exactly how much data you'd be backing up, let's say 5 years from now, right? How quickly are you going to scale in 5 years' time, for instance? Now, in certain, for some, in most instances, most of these organizations have projections, right? Projections of what they're going to be doing next year, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, right? And I'm sure Zambia does this as well as a country. So UNS already has an idea as to how many students they will have enrolled at any given point in time, let's say 5 years from now. So using those statistics, you can figure out exactly how much data you're going to be generating. The same goes for these entities that generate massive amounts of data, like telecommunications companies or the banking sector, for instance. So they would have to take into account their relative growth year on year, right? So how much are we growing per year? What sort of services are we going to potentially integrate as part of our core business? Because that has implications on how much data you're going to be generating, right? So capacity, and then there's performance, right? So performance in terms of how quickly you can back up data to a storage medium, and also how quickly you can restore the data once backed up if something does go wrong. Right? These are all important factors to take into account. So if you go for tape, brace yourself for the fact that it will probably take hours for you to back up gigabytes of data. Restoring is a painful process when you're dealing with tape. I remember there were instances where we would have to restore, when we were restoring data, it would take the whole day to restore data from tape, right? And the reason is because it's sequential, it's a sequential process. So you're restoring data a step at a time, right, in sequence. And then finally, you want to take into account the availability, right? So whether the backup strategy is going to be online or if it's going to be offline, right? The idea of an offline strategy would mean that you probably take down the system offline, so there'll be a downtime associated with the system. Like what's going to happen today at 17 hours. CICT told us that they're doing some maintenance work, and so some services are not going to be available. This is what typically happens when you're taking advantage of leveraging offline backup strategies. You take down whatever service you want to back up. Is this making sense?
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay. So in terms of the specific types of backups, strategies, or backup strategy types, there's really three types, right? So there's so-called full backups, there's differential backups and incremental backups, and we'll go through these one at a time here. So a full backup is nothing more than a backup strategy that allows you to just duplicate whatever data you want to back up, right? So you're creating a replica of the data that you have. If I was to do a full data backup of my computer, what I would be backing up is the entire hard drive, which is 420 gigabytes of data, right? So typically what you're dealing with is just one backup set here. It turns out that this is probably one of the easiest backup strategies to implement. Why? Because all you're doing is you're just duplicating what you have, the data that you have. There's nothing complex about that. It's just like copy pasting, really. The downside, however, is that, yes?
So, what do you mean by backup?
Well, so the number of backups that you need to take. It's just one backup because you're backing up just one thing, one whole thing.
Oh, all right.
The downsides to a full backup is that, number one, you need more storage space, right? So every time you do a full backup, like if I was backing up my computer, every time I want to do a full backup of my computer, I would need to find this 420 GB somewhere, right? Now, where am I going to find this? Well, I would have to have a lot of money here, right? Because I have I have about three, maybe four 1 terabyte, three 1 terabyte external disks and one 2 terabyte disk. But how long am I going to use that thing? This is almost half a terabyte that's used, right? Right. So meaning that a 1 terabyte external hard drive would be used up if I just did full daily backups 4 times, right? Gone. So you'd need a lot more space, meaning that you'd need a lot of money, right? Because you'd need a lot of storage medium for you to be able to back up, to be able to do these full data backups. The other downside is that there tends to be a significant time investment. So the amount of time it takes for you to back up the data is significantly longer. Why? Because you're dealing with more data, right? It's a lot of data here. It takes a lot of time to back up a lot of data here. All right. And then there's so-called differential backups, right? Now, a differential backup is nothing more than a backup that only backups the data that has changed since the last full backup, right? So imagine a scenario where Lighton is doing full backups every let's say every week, right? I do a full backup every week is overkill here. Let's say Lighton is doing let's do an illustration here so that this is a lot clearer here. Let's say Lighton does a full backup every week, right? Okay, let's say Lighton backs up data every day, right? But what he does is up to Sunday, I guess. What he does is can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
So
we
let's
can.
super. So let's say Lighton does full. Let's say Lighton does full backups every week on Sunday. Lighton does all things on Sunday. Let's say he does full day backups on Sundays, right? Or maybe Monday is a good day to start, right? Mondays, I guess. Let's say Lighton does full backups every week on Mondays, right? Doesn't matter what time. What we mean by different, and he does differential backups every day. What we mean, Jesus. Sorry, can I call you back? I'm in class. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I had to respond to a phone call. I had this person tell me this one time, "No, you never pick up your phone calls." Well, but I don't have a secretary, right? Anyway, sorry about that. Right. Right. So with a differential backup, what we mean is that you're taking a backup since the last full backup. So if I do differential backups on a daily basis, except for days when I'm doing a full backup, what we mean is that I would be doing a differential backup on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? So each one of these backups is a changed state of whatever it is, whatever data I'm backing up from the full backup. So this backup here will only back up things that have changed since I backed up the data here. This will take into account the data that was backed up, which is here, the data which was backed up since the last full backup. This differential backup on Thursday is the data backed up since the last full backup. Do you understand this? This differential backup, and no, this differential backup is not from here because the last full backup is here, it's from here, right? So differential backup is nothing more than a backup strategy that allows you to only backup data that has changed since the last full backup, right? Typically here, I'm guessing you're seeing the pattern.
Dr. Lighton,
yes, sir.
On that one, so there's a difference between differential backups whereby you back up data since the last differential backup. I don't know if since if you carry out a differential backup on Tuesday and then again on Wednesday another differential backup, aren't you going to back up based on what you backed up on Tuesday or based on what you backed up on the full backup on Monday?
No. So when you're backing up on Tuesday, what you're backing up is everything that has changed since Monday. When you're backing up on Wednesday, it's everything that has changed since Monday. So yes, you are backing up what changed on Tuesday. But there's a method to the madness. There's a reason you want to do that, right? And you soon see, once we look at incremental backups, that there are certain advantages associated with you doing this. So let's start with the obvious advantages of you doing this as opposed to a full backup. If my strategy was such that I'm doing a backup every day, doing a full backup every day, and I'm backing up, let's say, let's assume the state of, let's do this. Let's say I have, we are using Lighton's machine as an example. I have 420 gigabytes, right? 420 gigabytes here. If I want to do full backups here, observe what's happening. tomorrow I will have slightly more data on my machine. Why? I use my machine on a daily basis. I'm creating things, right? Unless if you're some person who just doesn't do anything other than just log into Facebook, but still, anyway, the temporal files that are created. You know. The bottom line is that tomorrow I will have either the same amount of data or slightly more. Let's just assume my data increases at a rate of 1%, I guess, or maybe 0.5%, right? Or 0.1% if you want to, right? GB. If it increases at the rate of 0.1%, what I'm saying is that what we're saying is that plus yes. What we're saying is that this is where I'm sure you're asking yourself, why are we learning Excel? Well, it comes in hand right now. So if let's say, assuming I'm backing up data, a full backup on a daily basis, right? I'm just gonna thing here. This is stupid. Let's just round it off. Sorry about that. Observe what's happening here. If I decide to say I am going to do full daily backups every day, what I'll need is an average of about 0.5 terabyte every day, right? But if I'm doing differential backups, what I'm saying is that every time I am backing up data, I am only backing up data that has changed since the last full backup. So in this case, I will do a differential backup on Tuesday, meaning that the data that I will back up is going to be equal to what has changed minus B. I guess I'll have to freeze this, I guess, somehow. I think so. What has changed, I also have to round this up. Of course, I don't know. So meaning that on Tuesday, if I'm doing a differential backup, the only thing I'll have to back up is 0.42 gigabytes of data, right? On Wednesday, all I would have to do is, let me see if this formula works just as well. Super. On Tuesday, all I would need is that amount. Do you see the advantage of a differential backup from a full data backup? The sheer amount of data I'm backing up on a daily basis, assuming I back up data on a daily basis, when I'm comparing a full backup and a differential backup, it's orders of magnitude less, right? If you look at the differential backup, look at this. Instead of backing up 420.42 gigabytes of data, I'm only backing up 0.42 gigabytes of data. 0.84 gigabytes of data here, right? And so obviously, because I'm backing up smaller amounts of data, the amount of time it's going to take for me to finish my backup is less. The amount of money I would need in terms of investments into a storage medium is going to be significantly less, right? You see this? I don't know if people are still there now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Right. So there's that. But here's the thing here, right? When you're doing the opposite, you see, we are looking at a scenario where you're backing up the data. From a perspective of efficiency, performance, it's much faster for you to do differential backups and full backups because of time. For you, the amount of time it's going to take for you to back up 0.42 gigabytes of data is going to be far much less than the amount of time it will take for you to back up 420.42 gigabytes of data. But when you're doing the opposite, when you're restoring the data, it turns out that a full backup is much faster. Do you understand? Why? Because when you're restoring data, if it's a full backup, all you're doing is you're restoring this. If it's differential backup, because this is relative to the full backup, you need the full backup and the differential, which is time consuming, obviously, and involving, right? A lot of verifications that need to be done. Do you understand this? Anyway, so you have to look at, when you're looking at these different strategies, look at them from the perspective of these different aspects that you talked about here. But the aspects have to be taken into account from the perspective of you backing up the data and you restoring the data, because it's not like you're just going to back up the data at some stage. You're going to have to restore that data, right? So you look at what exactly it is you'd have to do insofar as the restore process is concerned, right? So this is why it's called backup and restore anyways. All right. So this is why we're saying here that this is only here. 2 sets are required here to restore the backup and the most recent differential backup. Remember that story I was telling you about about the people from Xamarin who restored the Sunday backup on Monday or something? I don't know if you remember that story. That was a full backup. What they do, right? What they do at Xamarin is they've created this virtual, it's a cheap trick that everybody's using now, right? These cloud service providers will tell you, we're providing a platform as a service, right? As part of our cloud offering. Well, we don't know if they've actually given you an actual physical server, or maybe it's just one huge server that's been segmented, or one huge physical server, and then they have virtual machines running there. This is what Xamarin does. And so for them they cut corners by just backing up the entire virtual machine. Do you understand? So the weekly backups that they do, right, is for all the servers that they are running, a la like this server, zajleads.unza.zm. What they do is they don't bother so much. They'll back up the entire virtual appliance. The virtual machine, maybe it's running VirtualBox or something. You remember the VirtualBox? They will back up, they will back up this thing here, this virtual machine here. And it's easy to back up this thing. It's just, they just take snapshots of this. And that snapshot is this classic example of a full backup, right? Hope this is making sense here. But I want you to just pay particular attention to these different strategies we're talking about, the obvious advantages and disadvantages relative to the different aspects that we just highlighted: cost, capacity, performance, online versus offline strategy. And then finally, you have the so-called incremental backup. Now, the incremental backup is essentially a backup that, it's a backup strategy that backs up changed data since the last backup. Now, notice the difference. It's not a differential backup is since the last full backup, but an incremental backup is since the last backup. Now, the last backup could have been another incremental backup, could have been a differential backup, it could have been a full backup. You see what's happening here? Again, if I was to use this illustration here and come up with, I guess, with like a kind of incremental backup, what we mean here is that assuming data is changing like so, right? Let's assume this is how our data is changing. An incremental backup, let's say we have instituted a backup strategy where we have one weekly full backup and daily incremental backups. So one full backup on Monday and then daily incremental backups otherwise, right? Observe what's happening here. Something really interesting is happening here. You notice that the incremental backup on the Tuesday is going to be exactly the same as the differential backup, right? Data on Tuesday minus full backup, because the previous backup is a full backup, which is a Monday backup, 420 gigabytes, right? I hate this thing, right? Right? But the Wednesday backup is going to back up what has changed since the last backup. Assuming you backed up the data, which was this much here, what we are saying is that the only thing you're going to have to back up is this, the difference. Do you understand? Now, on the first day, you notice that and these are going to be the same because of the formula I use. I just assumed my data is scaling at a constant rate of 0.1%, right? But what you immediately notice is that the amount of data that you're backing up when you're dealing with incremental backups is much less than these other backups. Why? Because what you're looking at are just those incremental changes, the deltas, relative to the previous backup. For a differential backup, you're looking at a change relative to the last full backup. How much data you're going to back up is going to be dependent on how frequently you are performing your full backups. Most entities will typically do like monthly full backups, and then maybe you have daily differential or daily incremental backups, or you can come up with a strategy where you have a monthly full backups, weekly differential backups, and then daily incremental backups. Right? It just depends on those aspects that we just talked about here. But again, I want to draw your attention to advantages and disadvantages of incremental backup, right? So from perspective of you performing the backup, obviously, it will take much less for you to perform incremental backups because you're getting those small deltas. If you were to monitor how much your computer or how much your phone scales on a day-on-day basis, you notice that it's probably just a few megabytes, right? I guess it depends on what you do online. If you download a lot of movies, maybe it will be slightly less. Monitor your phone. I do encourage you to do this, maybe beginning today. Just take out a pen or something or a spreadsheet and then take note of how much space you have on your phone as of today. Tomorrow, take note of the space. Day after tomorrow, take note of your space. Do this for a week and then see how your data scales on a day-on-day basis, right? And then maybe based on how your data scales, you'll be able to come up with a really nice backup strategy where maybe you'll be backing up your data on a on a weekly basis or something with full data backup or something, right? But again, for incremental backups, the size, the data that you're backing up is going to be less than differential backups, certainly far less than your full backups, right? You can see here. And then in terms of time, obviously this is the fastest because again, the size, right? Because the amount of data you're backing up is small, the amount of time it's going to take is going to be significantly smaller, right? Unfortunately, if you're doing the reverse, the opposite happens, right? So if you're restoring the data, it's going to take significantly longer for you to restore incremental backups. Why? Because you need all the backup sets. So if you are restoring data as of Sunday, here, observe. I don't know if you're still there, actually.
We're still here, sir.
Yeah, that's nice. I was afraid what happened before would happen. Right, so if you are restoring data, let's say something goes wrong, right? It goes wrong on Sunday, and you want to restore the data. With a full backup, all you have to do is you will just restore this 422.52 gigabytes of data. If you took a strategy where you're doing weekly full backups, but then daily differential backups, you would have to restore the full backup, which was done on a Monday, and the differential backup on Sunday. So you need these two things here. And I guess I just have to color code this into red or something. For a differential backup, you'd need these two. For an incremental backup, sadly, you would need everything, all these different things here. So you would need the full backup, you would need all of these different backup sets here. And because you need all of these things here, it's too involving, right? You have to combine these two things here. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right, great, good stuff.
So,
well,
question.
Yes, sir.
For an incremental restoring, you need you need the full backup, the differential, and the incremental, all of them.
No, well, it depends on the strategy. So this example I'm showing here, use the strategy where we're saying we have a strategy where we're doing one full weekly backup and then daily incremental backups. So in which case, you need all the deltas. You would need the full backup and all the deltas, right? All the way up to Sunday for you to restore, to rebuild what has been lost. But this strategy could have been different, right? Maybe you could have come up with a strategy where you're saying you're going to do one monthly full backup, one weekly differential backup, and then one daily incremental backup. So the backup sets that you need are different. They're dependent on the strategy that you come up with, which is why you need to sit down and carefully think about these things, right? And I know most of you guys, what sort of backup strategy do you think you use if you synchronize your data with Dropbox?
I think full backup.
Yeah,
But that's too much. That's too much. Yeah, because literally copy everything. Just make a full copy of everything.
Yeah. Okay.
For the first time, you can use the full backup.
Can you see my my mouse here?
Yes, sir.
Can you see my
Yes.
Yes,
Observe. observe if I right click here, if you see this Dropbox thing here, you see this tick here, yeah? Every time I go into, just paper, I don't know if you can see this small, oh, maybe I can, actually, maybe I can unlock this and just zoom it in so that people can see this. This would be much better that way. You want to carefully think about some of these things, right? Very, very carefully, actually. I don't know if you can, is it much larger now, this thing? Is it more visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So observe what's going to happen if I just pay particular attention to this icon here. There's a tick, there's a green tick right now. But if I go, just ignore everything but just the tick, right? If I go to my Dropbox folder and I'll just create a example or something, backup example or TXT. Observe what's happening with my tick. Huh? It's synchronizing, and then you notice that what's happening is data is being backed up, right? If this was a full if this was a full backup, alas, what would happen is everything in my Dropbox folder would be pushed on the other side. It turns out this is like an incremental backup, actually. And you can tell this with Dropbox, by the way. You can just log into your Dropbox folder, right? It's not very hard. Log into your Dropbox folder, and then you should be able to see some niche features like, I haven't used this web-based version in a long time, but you can see how things are being versioned as well. If only I could find that thing, probably not. You know, I've forgotten how you get to check those things. But bottom line is it's not a full backup. It's an incremental backup, actually. You're getting the profit-making organization or entity. It would be silly for them to do full backups. Why? Cost. They'll need to spend more money on storage, which is extremely expensive. Do you understand this? These are things to think about here. Are you still there?
Yes.
So I was just Googling up a number of customers here. I don't know where this is coming from, but they're saying 14 million users of Dropbox, right? Think for a second here. If you have 14 million users, right, roughly, and I'm just kind of thinking, but 14 million users, and you're doing full backups, you'd be insane, right? You'd go bankrupt in, I don't know if Dropbox is even making money. I think they are, maybe not. But are they? I don't know. But you'd be insane if you're a company and you're doing that, right? Dropbox profit. I don't know if they're even breaking even or something. Maybe they are. Perhaps they don't. Anyway, these are things to think about, right? But it turns out that there's something really interesting about this whole backup thing, right? The convention, a rule of thumb, if you're starting out for the first time, is there's a prescription, right? There's a recommendation that you employ the so-called or the infamous or famous 3-2-1 backup strategy. It will ensure that in the event of a disaster, you will have access to your data. Now, this strategy, the 2 strategy, simply implies that you ensure that you have at least 3 copies of backups of data, right? And you must ensure that 2 of those copies are on different devices. And 1 of the copies must be kept offsite. So what we mean here is if Lighton was to implement a 3-2-1 backup strategy, which is what I do implicitly, by the way, is I should at least have 3 copies of data. And true to that, I do, by the way. I synchronize my data to my external storage devices. I also synchronize important data to Dropbox. I also use GitHub, obviously, right? So I have more than 3 copies of data at any given point in time. Important data that I want to back up, right? 2 of the copies must be on 2 different devices. Implicitly, I do have important data that I back up on 2 different devices, my computer and Dropbox. I also synchronize data to Google Drive. they're different devices, obviously, because my data being synchronized to these cloud-based storage infrastructures on completely different computer systems, right? I don't know where they are, but as far as I know, they're on different computer systems. They're not on my computer system. One copy must be backed up offsite. I do myself. Synchronizing data to Dropbox is synonymous to data being offsite. It's not on the same site as me, right? Currently, my site is home, right? In fact, if I wasn't using Dropbox, my other site is Unza. Unza is like 4.6 kilometers away from where I stay, right? So already I consider that to be an offsite backup site, right? So really nice, very simple strategy, but extremely effective. You have to think here, right? Think about what's happening from the perspective of safety associated with your data. In the event of a disaster, if you have multiple copies, you can easily restore data because you have it on separate copies. In the event that, because backups, right? I can claim that I'm backing up my data by just saying, I know that my ICT 1110 notes are located here. Come on, are located in this directory here, right? ICT 1110 notes, everything to do with ICT 1110, most of it actually is located in this location on my machine. I can claim that I'm backing up this data by simply saying, I will move it, I'll back it up by, I hope I have enough space. Let me see here, 18 GB, which is good. Observe, I'm going to do a backup right now. I'll back up my data onto my home directory. I'll call this directory this backup, and then I'll use good old rsync so that it's a backup. I guess it's software, or utility software tool that you use to back up. By the way, I'll back up this data here. I'm backing up the data, right? No one will argue with the fact that I am backing up that data. Oh, and by the way, it's done because it's much faster. I've backed up my 394 megabytes of data to do with ICT 1110, right? Notes and resources and everything else, all the good stuff, right? Assessments, everything is there. Results, everything is there, right? But here's the thing. The problem with this is, even though I've backed up this data, the issue here is I've backed it up onto the same storage device. So what I've done does not conform to this thing where we are saying we are taking advantage of the 3-2-1 backup strategy. Why? Because all of my backup copies, and in fact, we could argue that for us to implement a partial 3-2-1 strategy is I have data backed up into here. I don't know if you're still following here. 3-2-1, partial 3-2-1 strategy. Data is backed up in here. It's in here, by the way. For me to have 3 copies, I'll claim to say, okay, I'll back up this data again in my downloads directory, right? It's stupid really, but it's fine because it's just an example. I'll put this in a download. I'll do the same thing, use rsync. I now have, technically speaking, I have what? I have 3 copies of data. Right?
Yes.
I have 3 copies of data. Yep.
How about in the case where
Can I finish my thought test and then you can ask?
come again?
Can I finish what I'm saying and then you'll be able to ask?
Yeah.
So you notice that what I've done here is a partial implementation of the 3-2-1 strategy, right? Why? I have 3 copies of data here, 3 copies. Right? The problem I have, though, I think it's like 3 copies, but the problem I have is all of these are located on the same computer system, right? So for me to ensure that I implement the 3-2-1 strategy, what we're saying is at least 2 of these should be located on 2 separate devices, right? And just pretend that Dropbox, this was not Dropbox, it was something else. Yes, what was the question?
How about if one copy is on Dropbox, the other one on my computer system, and the other one on my external hard disk? Is that also a 3-2-1 way of backing up data?
Yes, because so if you have one on, if you already you have 3 of them, right? So which is good. You have them on different devices. Notice here, right? Or mediums. We're not saying different computer systems, but devices or mediums. So this device could be, this is 65. This device could be a computer system. It could be that part of your data is on an external hard disk, like we have said. Maybe some of it is in here. The key thing here is devices, right? Or mediums. And then one has to be on an offsite location. So it must not be located, it must not be located in the same location as these other copies of data that you've backed up. So in your case, because you're backing up to Dropbox qualifies as being an offsite storage location. But if you had a situation where, let's say you have data which is on your machine, data which is on 2 external hard disks, that's probably not a good idea, because all of those devices are more or less like in some location in your house right now, we could argue, right? Unless if maybe your device is with your girlfriend or something, maybe you could argue that that's an offsite location, I don't know, right? Is this making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. All right, so just to wrap up here, looking at the time, I guess, to wrap up, just to mention that, again, as with most things, you obviously, for you to do the actual backup, you need software, right? Specifically, you need utility software tools. Most operating systems, it's not all operating systems will come with default, because it's a very important, operation. Operating system, your typical operating system will come bundled with backup utility software. Now, this could be something as trivial as a copy command or a CP command in Unix, or it could be something as sophisticated as rsync, which you have to, it's a third-party tool, I guess, that you'll have to install. I don't know if it comes bundled with most Unix operating systems, right? rsync. There's a whole slew of them. Take your pick. I know that if I go to utilities, right, I'm sure I'll be able to find backup utilities here. No? Well, I can't. Maybe standard system files or something. Anyway, backup files or something. I don't know. But there's usually backup utilities. I think it should be under system tools or something. There's usually utility software tools that come bundled with backup. Wow, can't find it here now. Anyway, I wish I could find this. But there are tools that come bundled with your operating system that make it a lot easier for you to back up your data, right? Some of them will allow you to create snapshots of your computer system, right? So that it's a lot easier. That's synonymous to a full backup, so that it's a lot easier for you to back up your data. In fact, that's probably the easiest thing for a novice user to do, is to just do an implicit full data backup, right? You don't want to complicate things by telling the user, no, you must perform a differential backup or an incremental backup. You will confuse them, right? Anyway, listen, I'll see you on Monday when we start our discussion of these different operations that we perform on storage mediums before we wrap up. And then we'll talk a bit more about maybe utility software tools as well before we wrap up. And then we can, I guess, proceed to lecture series number 14 or something. Unless if there are questions. All right.
Oh, Dr. Lighton. Oh, sorry. Wait. Sorry.
And
Dr. Lighton.
I don't know if someone is speaking here. The microphone is muted.
Oh yes. Yes. I was saying that when you said that.
Can you all hear Patrick saying anything? I can't hear him.
That's because maybe your mic is muted.
Oh,
yes,
goodness.
the mic is muted.
Could be my. Just give me a second. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, this is weird. I'm not sure what is happening with my. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Great. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. probably muted my thing. Were you able to hear me before though, when I was ranting or something?
Yes.
Okay, great. Are there any questions? Sorry, I think I muted my.
Oh yes. My question was when you're saying about the differences between differential and incremental in terms of restoring data.
Yeah.
You said that incremental is relative to the last backup that you did, and then differential is relative to the last full backup. Now, in terms
Yes.
of backup, we are saying that you've got an external device. That's where you're putting your data, and then if it's incremental, meaning you get your data from one device, you take it there, and then you just increment it. But I'm failing to understand it as in terms of restoring. For example, if I have an external hard drive and then I put data that has changed today, how is that difficult for me to come and restore it tomorrow if I just connect my hard drive to the computer? When you say that,
No, I mean,
yes.
well, it's not difficult. I mean, when you're backing up data, right, you typically would know the location where you're backing up the data. So you see, what you're explaining is a bit complex here. It's complex because you'll be backing up data onto a device that has that might already have data, right, on it. So what you'd have to do is on your external hard disk, you probably create a directory, right? A directory that you probably name backups. And then within that directory, you organize the hierarchy of that directory structure in such a way that you know where the full backups are, where the incremental backups are, where the differential backups are. And what you're doing when you're restoring is typically the software tool that you're using will allow you to do this, right? So if you look up rsync, I think there should be ways of backing up everything or increments of the data. The software itself, the software you use has some inbuilt intelligence, if you will, that allows you to restore the stuff that you need. Yeah, so it's you. I mean, part of the strategy would imply just assuming that moving things to your hard disk and then restoring the entire hard disk to your computer would be enough is folly, right? It's there's a bit of thinking that needs to go into the strategy itself as you're backing up the data. So you need to know exactly which location on the external hard disk you're backing up the data, right? So if I was backing up what I was showcasing to you guys in the downloads folder, right, where I had this ICT thing here. Oh, sorry, ICT 1110, this folder here, where I have this 394 megabytes. What I would have to do is, instead of doing what I just did here, the correct thing to do would be to label this as full backups and then incremental backups. Right?
By the way, we are not able to see your screen, but we are following, so you can just continue by presenting the new.
All right, yeah, no, I think it's a lot. So thanks for that. It'll be a lot easier for you to see what I'm talking about here. I don't know if you can see my screen right now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to restart. So observe, let's say I'm backing up data into, assume this is my external hard disk, and I'm going to be backing up ICT 1110 data into this folder, ICT 1110, right? The correct thing to do, the right thing to do is for you, when you're coming up with this strategy, right, as a person who's tech savvy, obviously, which is why this is done by technical people, right? A novice user won't be able to do this. You come up with a strategy and you tell yourself, the way that I'm going to organize my data onto my hard disk is I will create a folder ICT 1110, right? And then within ICT 1110, I'll have another folder called full backups. I'll have another folder called incremental backups, assuming you're doing increments, right? And then maybe as part of my strategy, I have said I will be doing weekly full backups. So each weekly full backup will have to be named somehow. So I'll come up with a folder name to say this is going to be, if I'm doing this every Sunday, for instance, beginning this Sunday, I will say this is going to be September 20th, right? It's a lot easier to use dates, by the way. So I'll say this backup is going to be September 20th. And in fact, let's do this. This is going to be fun. Let's say I'm doing this for week 10, right? 10 weeks. What I'll do is I'll say, okay. What I'll do is I'll say make directory. Okay, let's just say 3 weeks, 2 weeks, right? I'll do this. and then the other thing is going to be 27, right? And then after the 27th, it's going to be the 4th, right, of October. So I know that my full backups are going to be in these folders here. There'll be a full backup for the 20th, full backup for the 27th, full backup for the 4th of October. And then I'll go back to my incremental backups. For the incremental backups, I need incremental backups every day other than here. So I'll need a backup on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. You understand what I mean? So I'll create, I won't do everything here. I'll just create 24th, 20, I'll just do 21st, 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, right? So I'll say I'm going to create 20th, 21st, 22nd, maybe for 1 week, I guess. 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, right? I guess it should be fine. So you see, we see what's happening now. I've organized my hierarchy in such a way that, just a tree, I guess. I've organized it in such a way that I am going to be storing my data in here, right? This is going to come back here, I suppose. So I'll be storing my data in here, right? Where I say my full backups are going to be in here, in here, in here. And this could be a long list, right? You create it in advance or something, or you create it as and when required or something. Nobody cares. So what we're saying here is when I do my first full backup, I will just move the nodes into here, right? So I'll just do and it doesn't have to be rsync, by the way, guys. Could be anything. I'll just say I'm going to back up my data from ICT 1110, right? I'll back up this data, right? In here, right? So I know that what I have in this directory now, oh my goodness, what have I done now? I did the wrong stuff now. There we go. Shoot. Sorry about that. I have to go back here. I'm so sorry about that. I will do that. I will cut these. Oh, I will select everything and delete these. Right. Test them, I guess. Skip. So here's the thing. What I'm saying is I will come to my full backup. Let's say it's a Sunday, right? And then I'll go to the 20th. And then I will back up the full backup will go in here. I've done a full backup on Sunday, right? Done. What I would do is using the same piece of software, I would do an incremental backup relative to this. Because I have a full backup here, I'll just do an incremental backup by just monitoring the changes relative to this location. Right. So what I would back up is on the 21st, what I would back up is things that have changed. So by tomorrow, let's say tomorrow, and I guess this is tomorrow or something. Let's say today is tomorrow, although it's not tomorrow, I suppose, but let's say today is tomorrow, and then I come come here, I guess, and bear with me just now. I will explain what I'm doing just now. So let's say today is tomorrow, right? And then I create some files here. Let's say delete me or something, .txt. If I create some garbage in here, this garbage could be viewed as being stuff that has changed, right? So this would be like the increment. What I would be doing is, instead of, and I will just do a size. What would be here tomorrow is this, but what I would have backed up in here would be this. So what I have backed up is less than what I have in here is less than what would have changed. So what I would be backing up on the 21st would be this minus this. Do you understand? Which is equal to that. don't know if that's making sense, but it's okay, kind of compute this so that people understand what's going on here. Not sure if you're still there, but I don't know. So I'll be backing up 16 bytes, which is sad really, but anyway, so I'll be backing up 16 bytes here. But the software does this for you, but you have to be cognizant of how this works. And this is why people like you are employed to do this, right? People that are competent enough, people that have the technical expertise to know what they're doing, right? And really, this is where those other things we discussed, like if you remember the types of software, desktop, the types of application software, they are so-called scripts, right? What I'm showcasing to you right now can be automated, right? You just create cron jobs and everything runs automatically. Actually, you don't have to do this manually. There's a saying in the IT sector that at some stage you automate everything such that you get to work at 8 and by 9 you're done with work, right? Because everything is automated. The only thing you do is you check that the automation did what you want it to do, right? So you program things. Anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it does. Software does that.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I see people have left. See you when you see me, which is Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.